and welcome back to AR77. Today I wanted to make a bit of a fondness video of two unsung heroes, I would say, from my collection. I say unsung, I do refer to them quite often, or at least from time to time. Those two guns being the Walther PPS M1, or Classic, if you will, and the Umbrex Legends S25. Now, of the number of guns that I have, these two are ones that I regularly come back to when I just want to come out, when I'm not shooting, I'm not testing something for a video or trying something out or whatever. If it's just for the pleasure of shooting, I often come back to these two if I want to do a bit of plinking. And I'll tell you why. So let's look at the Walther PPS first of all. Again, this is the Mark 1 PPS. I've had this for over 5 years and I've put hundreds of rounds through it with never a single problem. This is a really accurate replica of the Mark 1 or Classic with the kind of the mid-sized or extended, I guess you could say, magazine. This kind of configuration would be, if it was 9mm, as you can get these chambered in or in the real steel, there'd be 7 rounds of 9mm or 6 rounds of 40 caliber ammunition in a gun that looks like this. It's just got so many things going for it, this little gun. It is a blowback pistol. It's metal at the top. It's got the polymer at the bottom, like you would expect from the real steel. But I'm sure there's a lot of metal going on inside it. It has the working trigger safety there. It has the white dots, kind of front and rear. And it's a nice little self-contained package. It does have it's got quite a novel kind of mag release there on the trigger guard, but you drop that kind of stick magazine, that metal stick magazine, and you have access to your CO2 in the back there, and it's got this self-contained kind of package where you've got your tool there. Well before the Glock 19, you had the tool in the back there, and your stick mag for all your ammunition. Incidentally, with the real steel, that back strap is also kind of a moving part, because what you can do is, if the gun is kind of cocked, you can drop the mag and kind of release this back strap slightly, and it disengages the striker from inside. So it doesn't look the same as that, but it is a working part on the real steel also. It's nice and tastefully branded. You know, there's none of that white writing anywhere. You've got all your kind of Walther markings, PPS, all these nice kind of elements that I've shown you before, I'm sure, on the review and on other videos. It just feels really solidly built. It's got a really nice weight to it, nice snappy blowback, and comfortable to hold. Despite being really slight, despite being a really narrow gun, it's just great ergonomics on the grip. You can see these kind of finger grooves here, and even though it's a narrow gun, because of the kind of the breadth or the width of this grip, it still feels like you've got a decent chunk in your hand. It's a single action only trigger, so it's a nice smooth trigger. There's a bit of take up there, and then a nice clean break, and as I said before, nice snappy blowback. Similar in a lot of ways to the CP99 compact. You can see some of the style elements of these two guns are pretty much identical, and yet I would say with the PPS, it's easier to load. The magazine is, I would say, slightly better. They both have these kind of trigger guard releases. I would say the magazine is slightly better on the PPS, because it has that base plate, so it's easier to remove and to put back in. And the way that we load the CO2 in the CP99 compact is one of these kind of twist affairs, where you've got to twist it and then twist the base plate. So it's far simpler. Let me just get that back on there. Far simpler to load ammunition and CO2 into the PPS with this tool. Just twist it up there. It's a lot easier. So I would say out of the two, if I had to let one of them go, it would be the CP99 compact, although I do like the sort of the chunkiness, that chunky element of the CP99 compact. But other than that, you can see they're very similar in terms of their profile. There is an updated kind of an M2 version of the PPS, which has the styling of it is kind of updated as the gun got updated, to the point where it kind of more closely resembles the PPQ. Let me just move that out of the way. I'll show you a picture of the PPS M2. It's more ergonomic, as I said before, and it does have those kind of front slide serrations as you get with the PPQ, which don't exist on the Mark 1 PPS. But what you do get on the Mark 1 PPS that you don't get on the Mark 2 is a rail. So you don't have that kind of functionality on the newer version. I think both the real steel firearms and the replicas are pretty much identical to their counterparts. So the PPS M2 Airgun is very similar, pretty much the same gun other than cosmetics. And I think the same is true of the real steel firearm. So yeah, just a really quick kind of rundown of that little shooter. You know, before the SIG P365, there was this, a really small, compact, easy to shoot blowback, pretty much fully functioning, although you can't strip it. Replica, really nice gun, really nice gun. A shout out also to the Bursa. There's a Bursa, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put up a picture here, which again is a replica, and I think it's pretty much the same gun as the PPS in terms of the replica. I think it operates and functions in pretty much the same way. Which brings us then to the S25, another staple when I come out shooting. It's easy to get caught up in those more fancy revolvers like the Dan Wesson 715 and now the M29 and the 629 by Smith & Wesson. Those cowboy revolvers, the Peacemaker and the Schofield and the Remington, so on and so forth. But this is a go-to for me. I really love holding and shooting this, and it's a fairly accurate replica of what I would say is like a model 66, Smith & Wesson model 66 with a 2.5-inch barrel. I mean, it's very similar in a lot of ways in styling to the M29 kind of snub nose, but I believe the M29 has a 3-inch barrel rather than this with the 2.5-inch barrel. And it's great, you know, as a generic revolver in its own right. It's built solidly. It's a good hunk of metal. It feels really nice to hold. The grips feel great in their hand. There's a couple of things about it. The grips, because of the way the CO2 loads, they've kind of updated this on all but a few different types of revolvers now. You know, you tend to get a more solid grip. You don't get this flimsiness, and yet it serves its purpose. It's a little bit flimsy, but when your hand is on it, you're absolutely fine. And it's kind of that almost what you'd call a kind of a Hogue style grip. And yeah, they don't kind of show the back strap of the gun, as they're essentially the whole grip, and they're not separate kind of stocks either side. It's essentially the whole grip. But it is a great self-contained system for the CO2. Once again, no separate things. You've got the twister there. I've shown this gun 100 times, I know, and you're probably sick of seeing it, but I did want to just give a bit of a shout out to these two lovely guns, because I find myself going back to them and using them time and time again. You know, the system for the S25 just works, which is why it's been released in so many different ways. You know, the Dan Wesson 2.5-inch, the Legends S25, the Winchester, the Crossman SNR 357, the Gamo PR 725. Other than the grip, the only things that set it back as a replica are perhaps, as I've said before, the size of the cylinder and the breadth or the width. I always got those two mixed up, of this kind of control panel. That should be slightly larger, and this shouldn't be as broad as it is, with that switch being a bit closer to the rear of the gun there, really, and a bit closer likewise to the cylinder. But beyond that, none of that gets in the way of my enjoyment. You know, there's a bit of a wiggle on the hammer, but once it's cocked, that locks up. So none of that gets in the way of me enjoying shooting this lovely pellet pistol, or BB pistol if you've got it in a kind of BB format. As I said, you know, it's double action, single action, so it does everything you'd want. The sights are adjustable for windage and elevation. Great weight. There's something classic about it. It's an understated revolver with just 6 rounds of ammunition in there. With this kind of polished finish, it looks kind of high end, but at the same time, it's quite subtle. Yeah, the Dan Wesson, the 6-inch that I have, and the S40 are both lovely guns. And as I said, I have the Dan Wesson 715. I have the Schofield revolver, this Colt single action, the Colt Python, the Smith & Wesson 629 in 6.5-inch barrel. I've got a few, but this is very much a go-to for me. I love the way this holds in the hand. I love shooting this, and it's just a pleasure to own and shoot. If you haven't got a revolver, this is a really great one to get your hands on. So there you go. There's me gushing over a couple of my guns. What do you think of this slimline semi-auto and this snubby little 6-shooter? There are plenty of reasons why they are 2 of my favourite guns. They're not necessarily that remarkable, but they are dependable and very rewarding to shoot. I don't know, which do you prefer? As always, thanks for joining me. Please do like, share, subscribe, hit that bell. Out of these 2, I honestly, out of my whole collection, I wouldn't let go of either of these. So if you do see one of these knocking about, grab one, or the M2, I suppose. But I do prefer the styling of the Mark 1 or the Classic. And these are all over the shop. As I said before, Crossman, Winchester, Gamo, Umarex. You can get a version of this somewhere, I'm sure. I would go for the pellet, but you can get ones with both sets of shells. And even if you got the BB version, you're not settling for that. It's still a load of fun to shoot, and ultimately the way the gun works is identical. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for letting me kind of make this self-indulgent video. Please get in touch with the comments. Please do take care. Stay safe. All the very best. Bye.